This week, we're trying something a little different. As many of you know, the Q3 course for premium members is on energy healing. And so I'm thinking, what can I do with the podcast to kind of support and co-explore those kind of topics? So we're beginning this week with a series of energy healing dialogues with different practitioners from different modalities. And some of you will be very familiar with fellow Newcastle boy, Lance Baker, and we will be here talking principally about Reiki. But Lance, this is great. We're from the same town, and it's the first time we've done this in person.
Yes. Yeah, I just said it was weird to hear your voice out of a mouth rather than a speaker.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at the moment, you work pretty much down the hill. So when we arranged this, you're a 5-minute drive from your last client up here, which is weird, very convenient.
Very
Certainly,
weird.
Other than my actual mother, whose room we're in, for people who are unaware, like premium members will have seen it, but this is her meditation room. Other than my mother, I think that's like the most geographically proximate guest ever. So there we go. Anyway, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Reiki, I think, is actually the best one to start these dialogues on, because a lot of people know a little bit about Reiki.
Yes.
And which is good and bad, right? And so I guess this is a fairly obvious one to start with, but what is Reiki?
Reiki, it's an energy healing thing that, as you said, is the most well known. It's often referred to as ancient, which is absolutely rubbish. Mm-hmm. It's 100 years old. My grandma's sister is older than Reiki. And it's a simple process where you're using universal energy that's around you. So an animistic model without using animism up front to pull universal energies. That's as much as they describe of it in the average concept. Using that free energy to channel through you to give to somebody else for healing. Mm-hmm. And quite often, because you're giving, it chooses to work on you as you're giving to somebody else. So some energy healing models drain you of your energy, especially in a lot of shamanic methods that you'd be exposed to. Yep. You've got to use your own personal energy. With Reiki, it's nothing of yours. And you end up feeling better from doing the healing of Reiki.
Cool. So I just want to jump in. So already I'm breaking the model. I was explaining to Lance what I like to do with these energy healing dialogues is ask everyone the same set of questions. So we'll ask this of Reiki and shamanic healing and so on. But I have to jump in there because I think this is interesting. Does that mean, let's say you have a busy day, what's the maximum amount of clients you would see in a day? Because there is certainly a recommended cutoff that I'm managing, as I get more experience, to bump mine up from like 2 a day to 3. But my teachers, when I was training, were saying like they'll do 4 in an emergency, but otherwise they don't. And 2 a day for them is kind of like sufficient. But if Reiki as a modality, dare I say, improves you, the more you're using it, is that similar? Or do you have like you know what, I'm not going to do more than X number per day?
I will see 5 people a day, back to back.
Yeah,
like no break in between. Maybe I'll race to the toilet and get some more water, and that's it. But I don't do all Reiki all day. I do hypnotherapy and counselling as well.
Yeah.
So it is broken up. But I remember the New Age expos we have here, the health, wealth and soul, or whatever they want to call them.
The Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in Newcastle, where I saw my first Voyager Tarot, and Eileen McCusick, who does biofield tuning. First time I ever got biofield tuning with the Newcastle Workers Club at a not great festival. Anyway, carry on.
Well, one of those I did was, the first one I did, it was 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock. First day, reasonably busy. Second day, from the time I started till the end, I was back to back. 15-minute sessions, just quick chakra cleanse, clear on most people, but some I did some intuitive healing, but most of it was just the same process on everybody. I didn't have a break for lunch. I could have. My cousin was running the desk for me and said, this person wants to fit in, but that's your lunch break. And I'm like, no, put them in. I had some biscuits my mum had made me, and I had half of one of those through the day. And I was energized. I didn't race from there to go get something to eat. There was a food expo next door. Didn't do that. I don't think I even had dinner till like 10 o'clock that night because I was buzzed and full. That being said, that's quick, basic things. Real healings with people, you're dealing with heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not. My limit I learnt last year of just seeing people, I will not see 5 new clients.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting...
I had 5 people that were all heavy trauma things, and I was a wreck when I come home. I was like, I need some space where that normally doesn't happen, and I can hear that story 3 times, but not 5.
That's interesting. I'm going to take that as some personal, unsolicited, free career advice, because I think that matters. I think first client rather than someone who you're like halfway or wherever you are in the process. You're right. I could do 4 of them in a day for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've already learned something.
Good. Right.
All right. So that's what Reiki is. I just realized I'm going to add another question down here. Tell me, you just mentioned that your grandmother's sister is older. So let's talk about its origin and its history. So origin, history, story, etc. of Reiki.
Super quick one. There's heaps of different stories.
Yeah.
Because it was a Japanese thing that was trying to be sold to American post-war when Japan has not looked upon favourably. So they made up lots of different stories to make it accepted. Like Yusui, the guy that started it, is a doctor, not a doctor. That he's a Christian minister, not a Christian minister. That he'd been to America, never been to America. So there's lots of false stories. But the essential story is Yusui went to a mountain to go on a Buddhist retreat, fast for 21 days, meditate for 21 days, not speak a word for 21 days. Sit under a waterfall. The water falling on your crown chakra opens you up to the ideas of the universe. During that, he had it come to him of Reiki healing. So he got fatigued and down as you do for not talking, eating, interacting for 21 days. He's feeling flat, and then all of a sudden he has this rush of energy through him. And from now on, he can heal universally, where before that he had to do like Qigong to build his energy up and then heal.
What was he doing on the retreat? Did he have illness stuff that he was going through?
He was having a bit of a midlife crisis.
Cool.
But yes.
And sports cars hadn't been invented.
Yes.
Neither really had secretaries.
That's it. Yes. I ran a class yesterday and I made a joke that, there was no Ferrari, so Buddhist retreat it is.
I hate cars. I prefer the Buddhist retreat.
Yes. And so it went through a naval officer who ran it after him, and then it went to a Japanese immigrant to Hawaii who she spread it to America.
My understanding of that story was she was the one who had some chronic illness problems.
She had, chronic illness and anxiety that was healed from it while she was learning how to do it.
Right.
Visiting.
And so how did she find it? What was her name? Sorry, let's
Hawaii Takata.
Hawaii Takata, okay.
So she was named after Hawaii because she was born in Hawaii. So she adapted it a lot by taking out, she whitewashed it, essentially. And she took out the intuitive aspects. So put your hands here, here, and here, and they'll get better.
That's really interesting. Okay, when we get to the modality, because it was at the Wollongong Folk Festival, I think I paid a nominal amount of money to get a very brief Reiki attunements, right? And I remember that's very interesting to me. So that it was her version of idiot-proofing it.
Yes.
We'll get to that. Anyway, carry on the story. Okay.
Part of that would have been that she was working with the guy before her, Churio Hayashi, naval officer, liked him by the book. So he wanted to teach it so that anybody could do it.
And was he studying under the main guy? Like, how did he get it?
Yeah, he studied under Yusui.
Right. And so Hawaii, if I get this right, again, I'm going way back here, because she encountered it actually in Japan visiting family. Was that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what time? This is immediately post-war.
I think that bit was pre-war, and she convinced Taishi to come back with her to Hawaii. and then he was called up to serve for the Navy and to give away secrets of Hawaiian bases and stuff. So it must have been midpoint. She was selling it to America post. So she learned.
And as you say, Japan and Hawaii in the war, it must have been a difficult sell for a while.
Exactly, yes. I could see she'd have a really hard time with doing it.
Interesting.
Yes. But Yusui, when he come up with it, had been exposed to lots of different energy healing things before. So it's not just like most stories I hear about it is he's under the waterfall and boom, he has this thing come to him. But the spirit of the mountain and the spirit of the waterfall definitely would have been communicating with him. But he did these other energy healing things before.
Like Qigong was one of them. Any other stuff?
Qigong, it was Kiko healing was the one that was what it was that used Qigong practices to build the energy up. But they found his passport and some of his diaries, and he had toured Europe before he found it, investigating psychic phenomena, psychology, and healing arts.
And this is early 20th century?
This is like just over 100 years ago. So
Okay,
it hit its 100-year anniversary this year.
Okay, so quite... Okay.
This tour that he did would have been like 105 to 110 years ago.
So what do you think he looked at?
There's no doubt in Europe at that time, if you were asking any one of those three questions, that you wouldn't find a book or talk to somebody that knew animal magnetism.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So definitely there's elements of that stolen and integrated into it.
Was he charging for it, or was he actually... Like, how does that... Because it's funny, the word stolen is quite... it has a lot of energy.
Yes.
Right, around the term. But so Reiki isn't an ancient practice, it's 100 years old, but I actually like it better knowing that it's this one guy who went on was familiar with different modalities, who went on a retreat, and wherever it came from, got the capacity to go, I can actually do something with energy which pre-exists, right? So it's funny, like stolen is the right way of saying it, especially if you're introducing Reiki for the first time, because it must get fascinating to have to explain what you do as a job and then immediately after correct some... I have to do it, but like correct some like historical... It's like, okay, so I'm a Reiki Master and teacher and hypnotherapist, which, by the way, that is what Lance is. Let me give you like a 50-second of what you think about Reiki is wrong, but also why it's still good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I have not found anything that says he was influenced by animal magnetism. But because of my knowledge of being a hypnotist, I know you can't be in that place asking those questions and not get that answer.
Yeah.
So I know that influence is there.
Yeah,
but I also know that when I used intuition after I did a one-day Reiki class, I was doing procedures that I now know.
Interesting.
Animal magnetism that nobody taught me.
Yeah.
So that energy is definitely entwined in there in ways.
And was it, again, so this is a leading question, but we'll do it this way. Was it a scam? Did he go and modify a bunch of systems that he could sell himself, or is this a sincere quest? Do you know what I mean?
I think
or both.
A bit of both. There is, like he called it Yusui Reiki Riho. Mm-hmm. There was a book published like 7 years beforehand called Reiki Riho from some other guy.
Right.
I've got a PDF of it somewhere, but I don't read Japanese, so I've got no idea what's inside it. So the term was already there. So he even borrowed the term, but we only remember Yusui. We don't remember the guy who wrote that first book. So it is
a bit of a scam then, cool.
It was a bit of a scam, but he's put his name before it. He said he's acknowledged the other thing, and this is my version. So I think he was honourable in the way of saying, well, I've got these different things. I want to heal, and this is the way I do it.
He didn't say Reiki as invented by me, Yusui. No. That's true. That's good.
His students did.
Right, yeah, fair enough.
And I think it was mostly Hawaii Takata spinning stories later on, and she wouldn't let anybody write anything down. She wouldn't give books. She'd turn into an oral tradition. But that's obvious at that time. Like, she's trying to watch her back. So anything that's said about Japan, she'd go, oh, no, it was this. This is what I said.
Yeah.
And correct herself as she goes. So
what a fascinating... So anything good, magic in the Renaissance or whatever, is intertwined with the geopolitics of the day.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. if she didn't change stories the way she did, we wouldn't be sitting here talking
That's
about Reiki
true.
today.
That's very true. So speaking of, what does the word mean if we're in that origin history thing? And it predated in the sense that there's another book that was out before Yusui's book. What does the word actually mean?
Rei means universal or spiritual, and Ki means life force. So Ki we've heard as like Chi, Prana, Akasha, all the other different terms that are out there for energy.
So it would have been a bold move because it sounds exotic to us because we don't speak Japanese, but it wouldn't. So in Japanese, it reads as basically universal life energy. So you can't really say you invented that.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
There's what blows me away about people calling an ancient thing. It's like, well, it's obviously inspired by something ancient.
Yeah.
But 100 years is not ancient.
No.
We're halfway to ancient, if that's the case.
Speak for yourself.
Getting close.
Yeah. Awesome. So when did Hawaii Takato either stop teaching from an oral tradition, or when did it kind of get away from those first three and become what it had, for better and for worse, become in particularly that sort of second half of the 20th century culture?
She taught masters between 1970 and 1980. She died in August 1980, so we're somewhere around now.
Yeah.
42 years ago.
Yeah.
She charged 10 grand US too, so it was
Nice.
pretty expensive for back then. So it was an elite few. So there was only like, I think 13 people that she taught that to, that were in America in various places that went out and taught it. And they were stuck by the rules of you could only charge those extremely high prices. You couldn't write about it, and you couldn't give anybody the symbols. This is oral tradition. It wasn't many years after she died that people started to write a book.
Yeah, sure.
I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think the first person that actually wrote a book about it was a guy in Byron Bay.
Really?
And so he got death threats
Right.
for healing art. Amazing.
Yeah. I don't like people from Byron Bay that much, so if I was giving him death threats, it was not because of the book.
Well, it was because he wrote about it. But nobody acted on it because nobody was around to get him.
That's true. Right, come at me.
And then not long afterwards, I think she was a Texan or somewhere in America, wrote about it and drew the symbols in the book as well. And she had follow through on her death threat. She had people like smashing down a door and throwing bricks through a window. It still blows me away though that it's a healing art.
Yeah.
These are obviously healers that are upset about it giving away these secrets.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? But the main bit that pushed it was when they dropped the price.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so they had people in their community who needed healing, who had the desire to heal, but didn't have the money that they teach, and then it just explodes.
Yeah.
And it's a simple process. They're teaching it in this hand process thing.
Yeah.
No intuition. Any housewife can put their hands here, here, and here. So it became a really easy sell. And then in America, especially, they do a big thing of, well, in 3 days you can do Reiki 1, 2, Master. You get it all when you're perfect in a weekend. So it fit into that easy way to sell to an American to spread.
How long would it take? So you said 13 people and charging 10 grand in 1970s money to get to like level 3 or master or whatever it is. How long would Hawaii take to get people up to that level? As far as you know.
I think she milked it for a while. Like Reiki 1 class, I've seen an advertisement for that mid 70s, and it was $285.
No, but I mean, like, how long? How many? Like,
how long to space in between?
Oh, 285 days.
No, $285.
Right.
I'm not sure how long she'd space in between, but you wouldn't just be dropping 10 grand back then.
No.
On it. So you get an expensive, for then still, introductory class, and then she'd do it over 4 levels.
All right, cool.
So she hit them up for various price points in between, I presume, and I don't know. I can't imagine somebody coming back the next weekend
No,
saying, I want
exactly.
to do
right, so it wasn't actually, you didn't like these 13 people who got to like the top level, they weren't all in the one class that she was training over like 5 years. They were.
I don't think so. I
Interesting,
think they were individual, and they're spaced out across the country too.
Okay,
so
cool.
it was just like a select few that were like, I've got the money and I want to go for it.
Cool. You mentioned something, the symbols, which is sort of important because, so the next of my standard questions, we'll return to my initial premise is how does Reiki understand the human energy body? Like, does it contain chakras and meridians? And also, this is a good opportunity to talk about the symbols because they were there from the beginning. Like, that was one of the things, again, correct me here, that Yusui got when he was on his fast. Is that wrong?
Depends what story you go for.
Okay, fair enough.
So, no, he didn't use symbols to begin with. They come later. And so there's one that they think looked like a Buddhist symbol he would have been exposed to that's slightly tweaked. And then the others are kanji writing stacked upon one another. Very sigil magic-ish, putting an intent into a thing. So they definitely didn't just come to him. They're writing. He crafted them. So
so he crafted, but that, I don't care. Like, yeah,
no,
but, So but they did still come from him, and then they went to
yes.
Yeah, cool. All right.
And there's lots of different versions of Reiki where there are other symbols. And what was the question again?
So, like, how does Reiki understand the human energy body?
In his system, there wasn't a chakra system or meridian system. He would have been exposed to some things like it, I dare say, with stuff he'd looked at. But depending on what Reiki class you go to, it'll be part of it. So my Reiki 2 class is very chakra-based.
Yeah, cool.
Is down that avenue, but that's because that's the way I work with it.
Yeah, sure.
But Reiki itself wasn't. It was more scan their body and feel where their energy tells you it needs help and give it help where it's asked for that help. And then it become that hand placement thing, and then it become 400 different types of Reiki.
So when did Hawaii or someone put, when I say put chakras and meridians in, you know what I mean? Or did that happen in the kind of like great blossoming and mutation that people, which I'm one of the things that appeals to me about it is that.
Yeah, it was post her. So
Yeah.
the masters she taught, some of them taught it by the book of her way, and they were the kind of people that were throwing bricks through windows.
Yeah.
And then the other people were the ones that would break the rules and would mix it with the other healing modalities. And that's where it's mixing in with shamanism and mixing in with Indian philosophies, and it's spreading around the world. So it's getting grabbed by every other different culture.
And because I can't think of, I've had a couple of sessions over the years, and as I said, I went through a breakneck number of attunements when I was like 17 at the Wollongby Folk Festival, and I was given a printout or a photocopy of, I definitely know the Chokurei was there, but like there was a couple of the symbols, which we'll get back to. But I don't think, I've had one session where someone wasn't kind of working with the chakras, but like, is there everyone's different, which is another powerful thing I think about the system. But talk to me about how the symbols are used, and would you say chakras are now more common to find in a Reiki practice than not?
I'd say it is more likely to be found than not, because that's the starting point of where most people go to of an energy model once they're exposed to energy and they want to find out more. So it has found its way into most of them. Yeah. The symbols, they are like calling a name to get to support of a frequency. So
that's right, because what does Chokurei mean? Because Rei is, again, is that universal or is that... Yeah. So Rei is universal, so what's Shoku?
Chokurei is, in most Reiki modalities, it's just more power.
Okay.
So it's to boost the thing.
Yeah.
So it's called the power symbol. Another one that's commonly taught is Saheiki, which is the emotional symbol.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the one he would have been exposed to something like it before. Yeah. There's one for a distance healing. Honsha and then Daikomyo is the master symbol. Nowadays, they're used in pretty much every lineage for attunements to connect people with that frequency of energy. But you see, we didn't do attunements at first. He only did it towards the end. People would just sit in his presence and have healings with him and teachings of him, and it would happen. But
so what? He wouldn't do any hand stuff. You'd just sit with him, and you'd be.
He wouldn't do the hand stuff of like opening somebody's crown chakra up and implanting a symbol and bridging a connection with them with it and putting it in their energy field. He'd be putting it in their energy field by sharing that energy with them and teaching them about it and healing their body with it, that they're exposed with it long enough that their soul's like, yeah, I can do this.
I
know this person we're in the room with. This is Reiki. Okay. Yeah. I'll work with this person and help heal. And that still sometimes happens. Like if somebody sees you enough for a healing, they'll usually have the ability to do that healing themselves if they try.
Yeah, true. Cool. So it didn't come with it or adopt at the beginning a human energy field map and so meridians or chakras or whatever, but more commonly than not, you would find them in Reiki practice now. And in fact, both. Like I assume both would be found one way or the other.
Don't find meridians in them much. I work with meridians and stuff, but that was just from my own exploring. I was like, well, if acupuncture uses chi, then I use chi. Let's use that.
Yeah. This is something Alberto says when people say like there aren't, which is true, there aren't chakras in like an Andean energy system. It's like, no, but they are in you.
Yes.
So what do you want? And fair enough. Yeah.
Yes. And so any chakras that would have been used by Usui would just be like the 3 model system because that's what was part of that culture.
I think about this as sort of later on in the course because that's absolutely the same as in the Andes where it's the belly center, the heart center, and we'll call it the brow chakra, right? I think that's Neolithic at like the latest. I think it's possibly earlier. And the 7 or 8 chakra system, which again is one of those things that people think is ancient, but arrives in that kind of like 1800s, let's call it a dialogue between South Asia and Europe. But I think that's just a further elaboration or an increased nuance on the 3 main energy centers, which again are very good diagnostically, are very good, because what I like about them from a practice point of view is that when you assess someone's chakras, what comes in with that is a whole bunch, like, okay, so 3rd chakra, so I know some of the issues or traumas we're going to be dealing with and all the rest of it. So it's this really good, I think anyway, the chakra system kind of like adds nuance to a very, very ancient energy body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, where are the 3 main ones?
Exactly.
And where are our main brains? Like, you talk about your gut brain, your heart brain, and your brain anyway. So they're more the key ones of where our decisions are made from, of soul and person and everything. So they're obvious they're going to be picked up on first. And they're obvious they're going to be the main ones that are going to be worked on first.
And so if you think about the bottom 3 chakras, so like they're all elaborations or almost like splitting light, but only into 3, of that ancient idea that this is the seat of right action, because all 3 of them are action, and then you kind of get over here, and like from solar plexus to heart, and even to throat chakra are all expression right love, right, and then of course the head is right thought. So I think those are, if we're going to say problematically though this is, I'm going to say it, true. I think we've had 3, let's call them chakras, since forever. And I think that there's something about the common sort of 7 to 8 framework that is its own kind of true, because again, there's some weird stuff about like nerve centers and all the things that end where they're supposed to. But it's like you've split light, or you've just added nuance to a spectrum of the human energy body. Does that make sense from here to here?
When words were first happening, I'm sure there was a word for hand before there was a word for a finger.
Sure.
Because you grip it, go with the main one, and then break it down. same concept with
Yeah.
the energy body. And I dare say lots of healers that just worked with the three system hundreds, thousands of years ago would still put their hands on other places of people's bodies.
Absolutely.
And they just might not have had a name for it.
Yeah.
But they still would have known what was going on. These are the main three, next 6, next 8, next 20.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think it is. That's, yeah.
I've had a few experiences where I've felt energy on insane levels, and some of those I've been able to feel like the feeling of chakras at every pore of my body. We're not labeling the chakras on every pore of our body because generally they're not important. We feed the bits that feed them.
Yeah, agreed. And that, I think, coming back to hypothetical ancient healers, right? If you were, if you had let's say a challenge to do with right action, whether it was sexual or what have you, and that healer worked on the belly center, they're still in the right place. And that's kind of what, like, same thing with heart, and again, it's not like they had the same problems we did back then. But if you go anywhere here for kind of like true expression of you in the world, if you go here with that, you're in the right place. And it's kind of the same thing for right thought. You go here. And I think that's where anyway, we'll be talking about this in the course with people who are there, my hot take on how old the chakras are. Yeah, cool. So this is, if you're premium members, you've heard some of this story before because it's really good. And it's Lance's story of how did you find Reiki and how did you become a Reiki master as a result? Like, let's give your origin story now we've had Reiki.
Through a lot of pain and suffering. I had a operation on my head, an endoscopic fenestration of an arachnoid cyst on August 5th. How long ago is it? Like 18 years ago in 4 days from now.
Yeah, almost to the day. Yeah.
And I was in constant pain, like 24/7, non-stop. I had, at best, I felt a 3 over that time. I was averaging about a 5. My level of understanding of a 10 got reset at least a dozen times in those, what you call suicide migraine.
Yeah, sure.
I tried everything of the Western model. I tried all the different pills. I tried the different injections. I tried the surgeries. I tried massage. I tried all these different things that were meant to work. And nothing made a dent in that. Like,
so how did you sleep? Like, let's go back to the pills because this is very important. Like, I presume NSAIDs were kind of what you would take during the day.
A lot of times, if it was bad when I needed to sleep, I'd guzzle down a kid's pain stop medication that would be made for a nighttime one for them that would put kids to sleep.
Yeah.
That would work really quick because it was liquid. It would soak in quicker.
Yeah, sure.
I found that worked better than any pill. It was expensive, and it would make me really sluggish the next day. But if I couldn't sleep, that would knock me out to get me through that bit.
Yeah.
And it was just an easy one to access.
Sure. Well, that's for people who are in, I hate saying chronic pain because it's the whole reason we're doing the energy course, but for people who are in continuous pain like that, and are sort of abandoned by the allopathic system, they're in this game of like, well, I can buy some weed from the kid around the corner, I can experiment with childhood pain or painkillers for children. You're in this kind of weird world, and the damage, it's awful, like the damage people do to their livers and so on just to be able to sleep or whatever.
Well, for years, I didn't take anything because I was worried about my liver. I stopped eventually. I was like, F it, I'll just live with this is my lot in life. I did do the weed one though, but that was rolling dice. Sometimes there would be like maybe 1 out of 10 times I'd do that, it would make it worse.
Interesting.
Better. So it was always a gamble, but that's probably because street stuff of like how it was done. But sometimes it'd be, well, it made me worse. and then I'd have the same bag the next
Interesting.
week, and it would make me better. I have no idea what was there with that. But where I found Reiki was at the 9th year. So the date of the operation, I said it was August 5th. My birthday is August 4th.
Oh, cool. So, also, this is a really busy time for Lance.
Yes, yes it is. It's hectic. And so I was booked in for the operation the day after my birthday, woke up with that pain from that. So every birthday I was like, it was a clear marker of, okay, this is 6 years, this is 7 years. So 33rd birthday, this is 9 years. And so I've actually accidentally broke the USB that was my music player in my car recently. So I've been listening to the playlist because I put a new USB in randomly, and it's the playlist from my 33rd birthday party where I made this dedication that I was going to try everything again. No matter how stupid it sounded, I'd try it. Everything I tried before, I'll try it again. I was not going to keep living with this thing the same way.
How do you, like, personal question, but like, how many times are you suicidal over that 9-year period? Because that's a lot to go, like, continuous pain. I can't.
Honestly, not as lot as you'd expect. So, how I said there was those suicide migraines, they were only that voice that pops up saying the only way to stop
this is to kill yourself.
Is to kill yourself. I never entertained it.
Right. So how do you keep your resolve?
Being
your
a
center?
satirizing Leo, I've got an upbeat personality as it is. So one of the drugs they tried me on was an antidepressant because it had a side effect of being a painkiller for a lot of people. It made me worse because that actually made me depressed. Because it lowered my baseline down rather than up. So I stopped taking it because I felt dead. So I usually could find enough joy in the world to still be okay. I'd laugh and have fun. The average person that knew me didn't even know I was going through it. I didn't tell people I could put on a good face until vertigo hit, and then I'm holding on to things and trying to stand up straight. So yes, I wasn't suicidal very often, and when I was, it wasn't suicidal thoughts that I was ever going to follow.
It's just the overwhelming despair of like, I can't believe I have to live like this. Why do I have to live like this?
There's a big difference between a suicidal thought and a suicidal tendency, and I never had the tendency. But so that 9-year marker, I tried out meditation, and I've got aphantasia, so I can't see anything. So meditation was really hard for me because everything was visual, was what I was exposed to first. So I didn't think I could do that. I tried float tanks, and they worked a little bit. That was okay. I met somebody that told me they did Reiki and I should try. Their girlfriend did Reiki and I should try Reiki. And I was like, okay, great. Let's have a go. Oh no, she had a weird experience, so she's too spooked out to do Reiki now, so she won't do it. Okay. And then I met somebody who did Reiki, and I said, let's have a go.
Did you know what it was beforehand? And so how had you not, again, not in a judgy way, did it occur to you during those 9 pain years to try it? Or was it that 33rd birthday, like, I'm going back to zero and I'm trying everything. I will try leeches. I'm all in on whatever's going on.
I had not heard it before that time. If I had, it didn't register on my radar. I had heard of acupuncture, and I still didn't even try that. Somebody gave me about, would have been the first or second year, they gave me an acupuncturist, name and number, and I was like, I'm not doing that weird stuff. I don't need to have needles poked in me to solve that. That's just more pain. And just dodged it. I have no idea why, but it just didn't seem to be an option I'd take. I was too much, I guess, indoctrinated that I had to do the allopathic method.
Sure. Speculate as to why, though, because obviously where we're going in this story is Lance is about to tell us about getting a Reiki healing that was curative. Do you think, because I think about this from that what we come to Earth to do perspective, had you had, let's say, a disappointing Reiki session, this friend's girlfriend who was maybe like, I don't really do it anymore, but we'll give it a shot, and maybe it didn't work so well. If you'd had a disappointing Reiki experience during those 9 years, once you got to the 33rd year and that resolve,
It would have been low on my list, yeah.
and
Very
so
low.
and so it's kind of one of those things where you go, literally never occurred to me in 9 years. And I'm like, well, maybe, however you want to say this, your soul or the agreements or whatever that you had were literally waiting for the encounter that would.
Yes. I think I had to suffer enough to actually respect it.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
if I'd got that healing the next week, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have kept doing it.
Yeah, so you're a little bit sore after surgery and then say, oh, someone says, go and see my Reiki guy, she's great.
Yeah.
And then you got like fixed straight after surgery. That's true.
I wouldn't have used it. No. So yes, when I did the Reiki session, it wasn't what healed me, though. So I laid down. She did completely non-touch stuff. Had my eyes closed. She put a CD on. I had no idea what she was doing. I was lying there thinking, this is the biggest scam ever. This is a joke. She's sitting in the corner playing with those tarot cards. She's reading a book. She's doing something, and I'm giving her money. And I was just imagining pulling money out of my wallet and setting it on fire. And I was laying there for maybe half an hour thinking about that it was just a scam. And I'm just ticking this box. This is something I'm ticking to prove to the universe that I've freaking done everything. And then all of a sudden, I feel something move out of the side of my head. And I've been hyper aware of every sensation around my head. And that got my attention. I'm like, oh, this isn't pretend. She's doing something. I have no idea what she's doing, but that witch is doing something. She wasn't a witch, but that was the name I gave her.
Yeah, exactly.
And I maybe only felt like half a point better on the pain scale. It wasn't that great. And I went and seen her at another time, and weird stuff happened. And that made me very curious, but it still didn't feel much better. And I wanted to get this meditation thing right. Mm-hmm. So I Googled meditation class Newcastle this Saturday, which if you do it, there's plenty of things that always come up. Nothing about meditation come up. But there was a Reiki 1 class that Saturday. And it said you could do it yourself. And I didn't know you could do it yourself. And I was like, oh, well, the other things help slightly. Maybe if I do it in between, it might help slightly more. And so I went only expecting that it helped slightly more. I thought, if I can keep 1 point off the pain scale all the time, this is going to be great. And a week and a half after learning how to do it, no pain. I remember standing in the doorway, the threshold, leaving the man cave that I'd built, that I'd been in on my way to work. I think I'm forgetting something. Keys, wallet, phone. Okay. Oh, I don't have the migraine. Where did I have it this morning? I don't think I had it this morning. I don't remember the last time I had it. So somewhere in that first week and a half, it went. I found a diary entry of some weird experiences that I had of healings I did on myself, and I think it happened, that would have been a Thursday because it was middle of the day when I was going to work. So I found a diary entry of the Tuesday where I'd done a chakra healing thing on myself for hours and had some really weird, trippy things happen. And I was focused on the phenomena of what I experienced, that I didn't notice the pain wasn't there till 2 days later.
So, and again, we'll never know, but I'm interested technically in this. Do you think, so one of the things we're going to talk about in the course is literally different energies, but also different frameworks of understanding energy. And one of the things that I like about Reiki, I think, is that it lets the energy, which the divine energy being more intelligent, basically find what needs to be done and fix it. And you're basically the tap
Yes.
that it comes through. So do you think it was just, I'm using air quotes for people listening, the fact that you were moving that energy intentionally through you, doing chakra exercises, or after that Reiki 1, were you specifically doing, like, were you energy balling your head? Were you doing anything like that?
A little bit, but barely. The time where I think it happened, I spent a lot of the time not on my head. Like
Yeah.
I opened each chakra up and felt weird things happening, and my whole body trembled and shook for ages.
Yeah.
It got tantric. I had an erection and didn't touch myself. It was bizarre. I wasn't expecting any of it, but I wasn't focused on healing the head.
Yeah.
But I would have had that intention going in, that it's for healing that, but mostly my intention was to be better at what I was doing so that I could. There was like practice.
Sure.
To be able to do the thing, not do the thing.
Well, so there's a couple of points there that obviously line up with like Lynn McTaggart's research, where did you actually have a migraine? Like, was your pain localized to the head, or were you as a whole energy being experiencing pain, right? So there's this thing, we kind of bring a lot of the precision of the machine model of the human body to non-allopathic methods. So we're still sort of thinking the same thing, which is like, oh, my arm is sore or my heart is sore. And it's like, well, is it? Or is this whole body expressing something? Do you know what I mean? So there's that kind of idea where, and this is why I think I like the framework of understanding around energy in the Reiki system, is that there is a trust in the energy's capacity to find what actually needs the adjustment, which is cool. But also what Lynn says about if you're not getting results, to her exact words are like, get away from yourself or get out of yourself. And if you aren't focusing on the problem, you kind of get out of the way of the healing.
Yes. For self-healing, for me, the best results I often get is when I just do an energy ball about the thing and then stop thinking about it and just feel the ball and focus on something else and just completely give up how it happens and what's happening. I'm just giving energy to the solution. And so the energy is finding its own.
Oh, so I was about to get you to clarify that. So you actually energetically charge the solution or the healing, rather than like if you have some non-specific back pain.
Yeah, this is for the back pain.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I do heaps for emotional things. So
Yeah,
if I'm
sure.
having a bad day, this is to have a good day. If I'm cranky about something, this is for my emotion state. And the answer's quite often not what I expected it to be. The first time I did it for an emotional state, it was I was really upset and depressed, but I was upset and depressed because I'd had an argument with a mate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did this, and I was doing it for like 5 minutes, and I had to stop. My phone was ringing. It was my mate calling to apologise.
Good. So it's a manipulative energy.
So it was manipulative, yes. He never apologises, so it really stood out. So you can guess what I did the next time I had an argument.
Teach manipulation ball to yourself.
Do the same thing.
That's what we call it now.
It didn't work though.
Oh, interesting.
It made me really feel like I needed to apologise to the other person. So it doesn't always work the exact same way.
Yeah.
But it gives different pathways than what you expect, because you're not focused on the what's wrong. You're not focused on the how to get to where it is. It's just open.
Yeah.
I don't find that works as well when I have somebody in the clinic though. I've tried it with that and I haven't had as great results. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's the point where when I do it myself, I'm making more of a statement to that energy of I'm open for whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas when somebody's in my office, they're making part of a statement to that energy and part of a statement to me, so they expect me to do it and give them that healing.
That's interesting.
I have no idea what it is, but I've experimented with it a few times. I'm like, well, this doesn't work in my clinic. It'd be great if it did, because I could just sit there and do this.
Yeah, it is probably. So one of the things I learned in training, which is the way Alberta's method works, is that it actually works quite well remotely. And what Karen, who taught me, says is that she thinks it works better very often because people are in their own homes. But there's some questions that we'll get to in a minute about strengths and weaknesses and what it's good for and what it's not. And so, but if you look at the collection of techniques that you would find in Alberta's version of shamanic healing versus Reiki, most of them are actually quite good because you are on your own. And it's funny, do you give people homework then? Like if it doesn't work in clinic, you say, I think it's because you're kind of splitting your awareness between doing this because I've just told you to do it, and you're making sure that you're doing it correctly, and also putting energy into it. But do you tell them to go home and say, do this when no one's around?
Yes.
And,
Quite
cool.
often I will, because the self-work is quite often the best. And generally, if there's an energetic imbalance in you, there's an imbalance in your life that's
Absolutely.
creating that.
Absolutely.
And so some people, I'll say, well, we're not doing energy healing again. We need to do hypnosis because we need to change this thought pattern that's creating this energy every single day. That needs healing. And it's not going to just get healing through energy. Or you need to deal with this, quit your job, quit your relationship, quit your fight
Whatever
with
it
your
is.
neighbor, whatever thing is just a constant conflict in their life. If that's there, the energy is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And they can come see me every day and I can clear it every day and I can get rich off them doing that. And I don't want to. I want them to deal with their problem. So that's where the homework more is, rather than energy exercises. You need to make a choice.
Yeah.
Do you want this forever or not?
All right, so we'll get to that because I think the combination of modalities is really exciting to me. But so there you are, you're halfway to the car on your way to work, and you realize, the continuous pain is not there. Did you? This is a leading question. Did you, in that moment, decide, I, Lance Baker, declare that I shall become a Reiki Master and hypnotherapist at that point?
No. Yeah. I was curious how long it was going to stay away for. I thought it would be back real quick. And it just didn't come back. And I was having enough interesting experiences from Reiki that I wanted to learn more of it. And I wanted to make sure it was good enough that if it come back, I could help send it away again. So I had my attention enough to want to do like Reiki 2. And so I did that. And more weird, fun shit happened and the pain hadn't come back. So I wanted to do Reiki Master. And completely selfish. It was like only telling who I had to. Mm-hmm. Wasn't planning on becoming a Reiki practitioner. I was still like, I was about to buy a carpet shop and take over somebody's business. And when I did Reiki Masters, they were like, you're going to be teaching this all the time. You're going to teach a lot of people. We can see you teaching heaps of people. I'm like, no.
The future's in carpet. Yeah.
And, but I did want to explore it more. So after I did Reiki Masters, I started doing it like a day a week in the afternoons, the float tank center sort of thing. And my very first paying client had a shattered hip and carried her crutches out. She still had a shattered hip, but she still needed to use those crutches. But she had what seemed like a miraculous healing, and it wasn't. She still had to see me every week till she got a new hip. But it was miraculous for her that her pain went away and she had mobility again. So that was huge. And that really smacked me in the face to say, well, this isn't just about you. And you can do something. You've made a difference in your life. You made a difference in this woman's life. You need to make a difference in other people's lives. And I taught her self-Reiki because I wanted her to be able to look after herself at home, like I did. So I was forced into teaching somebody pretty much straight away because I had guilt that I didn't give them a gift that they needed. And it was rewarding seeing somebody look after themselves, that it just slowly snowballed. I had no intention of doing hypnosis till I found out I was accidentally putting people into trance from what I was doing.
But how did you find that out? Because I agree completely that, and this is actually very similar to sort of a shamanic healing process where you clear the imprint that's actually generating and the imprint is trauma-based or whatever it happens to be, that's generating the malfunction, it's the wrong way of saying it, but generating the unevenness or something that needs to be addressed in the field, in someone's energy body, right?
Yeah.
So did you come upon that like this motherfucker keeps coming back, but it's the thing that's still generating it? Did you go on a quest or what happened?
No, it was because, like I said, I was intuitively doing the animal magnetism or mesmerism stuff, and I had no idea that that's what it was still at that stage. One of the people I trained Reiki with that I trained under was also a hypnotherapist, and she's like, "How are you putting people in these trances?" I'm like, "What trance? They're just asleep." She's like, "No, these are all signs of trance, not sleep. If I do this, they'll wake up," and like banged a gong right next to his ear, and he didn't wake up. She's like, "That's trance. You've created hypnosis. What were you saying to him?" "Well, I didn't say a thing. I was just doing this." And she was like, "That's not what we taught you. That's interesting. Some natural thing you're doing that creates hypnosis. You should look into that." So I looked into it. Had the hard luck of trying to pick what class to go for. Picked one because my cousin liked his CDs, and his class was on August 4.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I went along, and during his class, he's the only guy in Australia that I know of that teaches mesmerism at that stage, and the last day he talked about mesmerism, and I was like, "That, what you're doing there is what I've been doing," and that set me down that pathway.
Right.
And his class was completely useless for me because it was all about creating trance, not
Right.
what to do with it.
Yeah, sure.
So then I had to go find more. Now I know how to create it a different way, but I know what the thing is I'm doing now. I know what to look for. I need to look at mesmerism to understand what that is, and then I learned how to do therapy-based things from there.
Yeah, cool. And so after that first kind of paying client, was it okay? Did you make the decision then to kind of transition out of normie life and into that as a full-time thing? It's like, oh, I guess this is the direction I'm going, rather than, as you say, carpet.
It was still slow. I ended up getting an extra gig, so I worked Sunday to Thursday in the carpet gig. I was looking to buy somebody's business, and that guy was just fluffing me around. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just start my own. I'll keep working for these people for the moment. I was doing Thursday nights at that float centre and sad days. And then I went and found a hippie shop in Belmont and worked the Fridays there. And then my boss wanted to change my roster and make me work Monday to Friday. And I'm like, well, no, I like my Friday gig. I'll do 4 days a week. I don't need to work 5. Let's do 4. And he's like, no, you've got to do it. And he pushed my buttons for a long time and didn't like him. I told him to F off a bunch of times before. So I told him to F off and I left. And then now I had to make it work.
Yeah, sure.
So delved into it from there.
Oh, cool.
I did have a part-time job in between because somebody offered me, like 2 days later, I found out he left, come work for me. And I worked 3 days a week for him and did that for maybe 6 months. And it was just, I could see the Reiki stuff was not growing and I was just treading water. So I had 2 crappy part-time jobs. I'm like, I need to make this work. I'm going to make it work. And it was a long, hard few years. To start out being a healer, you don't make money.
No. No. So moving into the section of what it does, right? And this is the take section rather than the history section, but I think it'll be good. Like, how do you think it works? First take. How does Reiki work? And we're talking about Reiki specifically because I do want to talk about how the modalities blend later. But how do you think it works?
That's the hard question because the average person mixes modalities.
Sure.
So Reiki on its own works by that invitation. I'm going to be here and be the vessel that brings this healing energy to you, and it's going to do its thing. That's what I think Reiki energy is. And if somebody's just doing Reiki, the advanced version of that is where they can feel back what the person's energy body is telling them where they need to do it. And that's it.
So principally invitational is how it works. Like you set, as the practitioner, you set your intention to be, in shamanic parlance, the hollow bone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Actually, that was fairly easy. Yeah. that one was going to be more contentious, but
No, but I don't know many people that just do Reiki.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Well, that's the bet. Like, oh, no, this is actually, what is it best for, and what isn't it so good for?
A hard question. Because I don't often use pure Reiki anymore. Because it's best paired with something else.
Yeah.
You generally have it with something. Once you start doing it, it's the gateway drug.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's the thing that lets them realize there's more, and then they need to work out how to do something with it. So,
but that could be the answer. So is the answer like it's best for letting people know viscerally, like to their core, that there's something to all of this?
yes, yeah, it's a good jump starter because you can walk in not having a clue about energy. I've had people come to my Reiki class, never had a session before. They were curious, or they've been a support for their friend who's coming, and they got no idea what they're in for. 10 o'clock they've got there. We do introductions. I give them a basic history of Reiki, and then I give them an attunement, and now they can feel energy. That blows people away. They've been there an hour, and all of a sudden they're doing something they never understood before.
Yeah, that's
pretty potent.
God, it might actually be the thing that it's best, because the obvious categories are things like, well, is it good for pain management? Is it good for yes, it helps for all those things, but what it's best for might honestly be that.
In my view, yes, it's best for initiation to realizing the world is much more inspirited than you thought it was.
And if it begins them on a journey that lands them in a modality where they achieve healing to their satisfaction, whether it's acupuncture, whether it's whatever. Yeah, I like that. Because how do you answer? Because I get this one. I don't know how many times you get this a week. Mine was mostly Zoom, right, on the call. It's like, yeah, well, how can I help you? And they're like, I don't know. What can you do? But that line every time, always men. Actually, one time it was a woman. And I am tempted, because I am a dick, to say, I can remind you there are no refunds. But it's that same question. They'll either be shuffled along by the wife, or like, I'm kind of called. They won't actually begin by saying this, like, I'm kind of called to this stuff, or just like, no, there's something about it that led to me being here. So obviously I don't say, I can remind you there are no refunds, but I'm familiar with the finding a way of, I think, in my case, I actually think there's usually a reason that people have come, that they're less comfortable verbalizing or vocalizing right away. So when I get that question, that's usually a kind of, okay, well, let's find out. And it's usually 2 or 3 questions later we get to what it is. But that's my favorite. It's like, I don't know, what can you do?
Yeah, I don't get that anymore, but my way of what they're there for, I guess, is a bit of a trick now because of how it's played out over time, because I got sick of correcting people of, well, no, you need this.
Yeah.
So now
Good
that they
point.
book an appointment, whether they book for Reiki or hypnosis, or the main one, just holistic counselling, where you get anything of what I offer, every session now starts where we sit down for half an hour and I find out what's going on. What's going on in your life? What made you book? What are you curious to find out about? What's going on? Some people, all I have to say is, what are you in here for? And then when they're at the end of it, I say, well, I've got various tools. This is the one I believe is going to be best for you today. And I introduce whatever that's going to be. Get up on the table, put your hand like this, close your eyes, whatever.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So I did not expect that answer, and I like it, that it might well be best for being that gateway into that wider world of healing. That's very cool. What modalities does it best support is how I've written it, but I think, because actually, funny enough, this comes back to the pain management thing. So there are different, and I hate calling them alternative, as you know, but there are different healing modalities that are actually very well indicated for if you're going through particular allopathic journeys, right? So we could go about it that way, but I think more importantly, like you've spoken about hypnotism and whatever before, like what does it pair well with, like matching wine, right? Like what works really well with Reiki?
Surprisingly, a lot. Like, I have heaps of beauty therapists come to me to learn Reiki. Didn't think of that before.
Oh yeah.
But their hands are on people's faces all day. And those that do it notice people's faces look better afterwards since they've been doing it. Massage therapists.
Yeah. Body touching stuff.
Yeah, body touching stuff. Tattoo artists.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because also it's fucking painful.
Yes. The surprising bit, though, that I've noticed where it makes a huge difference, where I didn't think it would, is the non-bodywork stuff, the talk-based things. When people are counsellors or hypnotherapists, that energy changes the way people respond to that. What are you in here for? The amount of people I've had where just because I've energized the room and I'm projecting an energy towards them, that within 5 minutes of being in my office, they've spilled the beans on what's really wrong with them and let go of being able to verbalize their trauma. And they say afterwards, like, how'd you get me to say that? Because I've had half a dozen or 9 or 10 psychologists and counselors and whatever over the years, and I never told them that. Why did I tell you? Too many people have said that to make me know the energy, soften them up, to get them to give me the nugget I needed to get them to the next step.
Yeah, I resonate with that. The energetic conditions allow them to feel, I hate to say the word safe, that's not quite right, but differently at peace, or in a way to be able to share stuff with. And again, not ragging on, psychiatrists. Well, my dad's a psychiatrist, so I'll rag on them, but not like ragging on like other talk therapists. But if you're going to an energy healer of some description, he or she's going to have, wherever you're meeting the client, be in a different energetic condition than a therapist offers.
Yes. And like what I remember you saying once on some podcast or something in the members area years before about that magical pairing of your parents, that your dad had your mum there to clear the energy of him before he come into this house, or when he came to this house.
Yeah.
All of that traumatic energy that was floating around him didn't come back to the family. That on its own is huge for any talk-based therapist. Like I said, I won't take 5 new clients in a day because the time I did was 5 people who had been through trauma. Even consciously, that was too much for me. If I hadn't had energy involved in that situation, energetically, that would be horrific for somebody's soul to be taken away.
Yeah, that's interesting. So another answer I wasn't expecting, but it obviously makes complete sense, is it works well with like body modalities like massage. And then what I was expecting was the talk bit, because I'm biased because I'm looking at the parts where it looks similar to Alberto's method of shamanic healing, where it's almost like it's what you've put together anyway, which is being able to, in my words, clear the imprint and address the field, right? So I was expecting that, but I perhaps should have expected like modalities involving touch. That makes complete sense. Like in the same way, so acupuncture and Chinese herbal remedies are like ham and cheese. Like these things work very well together, right? So I'm into it. I'm into the idea that it's touch-based modalities, and I do think it needs, because the sort of final question is almost like if you were the boss of Reiki, or no, a nicer way of saying that is, what would be a nice thing to see in Reiki's medium-term future?
Everybody doing a basic class. I put on Reiki once a month so that it's accessible, and I do it on a different day each month, so nobody's got the excuse of, I work every Sunday, or I work every Saturday, or I work whatever. I create as many opportunities as I can to make it easy for people to do that, at least Reiki 1. So they've taken that gateway thing, they can go out and they can find what their thing is and have that leading bit from it. And when I first started doing Reiki, I had to explain what it was to everybody. Now I don't. Now if I use a term like energy healing, people are like, what's that? Is that like Reiki?
That's true. It has sort of flipped around.
So it's...
Oh, you'll appreciate this. In the
it's
jungle,
not-
I described shamanic healing as Reiki with rattles.
So that's what I'd like, is more people to at least have had that taster, because, well, I've had thousands of students now, and I see how much just that one day makes a difference in people's lives. Whether they keep on that path or they find their own, it still switches things around.
Nice. I like that. That's really good. And actually, we're doing Reiki 1 for the members during this course, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes. So if you're listening to this and you are a member, hopefully I put it in the calendar by then. That's the other thing Lance and I will be discussing once the episode ends up. But if not, it'll be in there. But on that note, I mean, anything else we want to say about Reiki, particularly because, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, I want these dialogues to be almost like the modalities themselves in dialogue. Yeah. So is there anything else that we might have not said about Reiki that would be good when we go on to have a pranic healing discussion next week and whatever else moving forward?
I don't think so. No. It's prolific enough that no matter where your listener, viewer is, they should be able to find somebody within 50 kilometres of them.
Yeah.
That does the class cheap. Waste a weekend. Try it out. See what happens.
I like it.
Or sign up for membership and you get it for free.
Or where can they find you now that we've arrived at the contact part of the questions? And what have you got going on? Well, no, real talk, because you're always doing super interesting things. We were talking about that before we hit record. Where can they find you? What do you got going on?
I am at branchesofhealing.com.au. On all the social things, it's easy to find, I guess, too. I've got a clinic in Merewether. I'm soon going to have a clinic in East Maitland on ancestral land, as close as I can get in Australia. I do sessions online, on Zoom like you, or in person. I teach the classes all the time. I do hypnotherapy and counselling as well, both again on Zoom or in person. And I teach classes on all of it as often as I can.
Nice.
Zoom-wise, for those that are not local, I don't think I've got anything coming up, but if you hit me up with an email saying run one, and if I get enough of those, I'll definitely will run one. And I, because I'm Australian, time zone is terrible, I often run classes in the middle of the night.
That's so true. People. There you go. Although I don't mind them. One of the things, I have my clients start at 8 in the morning, because it's sort of mid-afternoon to evening in the US, which, and I'm a morning person, so that works quite well. So I finally found something that's good about our ridiculous time zone.
Yes, that's good for short bursts. I find it's not great for a Zoom class for them to be their evening. So I usually have to get up.
Well, no, I'm very grateful that you're actually here, because I do have some scheduled for 3 in the morning later in the month. We're trying to get people around the world, and it's the job. But no, thanks very much. I absolutely love this chat, and I'm glad that you were the first person to do the energy medicine or energy healing dialogues with, because you're a teacher yourself, and it's really good to kind of have that level of detail and competence and patience, I think, with my questions.
Yes. I did remember something else, if they're curious. On my website, there's a free Reiki attunement meditation video that they can listen to and get attuned to Reiki themselves at home without going anywhere, without it costing a cent. It's followed through with stuff about COVID, because I did it at the very beginning of when COVID hit. So not all of it's maybe applicable for you today, but
that's cool.
The connection definitely is, and that's there.
And of course, both of those will be in the show notes if you're listening rather than watching. And yeah, Lance, thank you very much.
Thank you.